Hello, Deviant fam. It's Dan, and Andrew and I are so happy that you're here for our new series, our new story. And like with our other series and our other stories, there are plenty of ways to experience what we're talking about beyond this show. If you want to hear more what we're talking about, see the documents, see videos, hear audio, there are a couple ways to do that. The first and best way, visit our Patreon, deviantpodcast.com. There, you can see what our different tiers have for you, and you can also get access to our Discord where you can chat with Andrew and me. Second, visit us on social at deviant.podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Great places to find us too. Also on YouTube, also at deviant.podcast. So with all that said, let's get to the show. As always, this is a true crime show, so there are scenes in this that may not be suitable for all audiences.
So I'm walking down here to the corner of Jefferson and Marion, across the street from the Eatonton Messenger, the town newspaper, or at least used to be the town newspaper. I don't even know. Looks like it might be an apartment now. But we're about to cross Jefferson Avenue.
I'm 75 miles east of Atlanta, in the town of Eatonton, Georgia.
So what you have here on the town squares, you have the courthouse, you have the Georgia Writers Museum, a Papa John's, a beauty supply, and a barber shop. Barber shop's closed. Weird. It's Thursday.
And I'm committing a crime.
All right, I'm going. I'm jaywalking on tape.
I'm not the type to commit a crime, on tape no less. But here in Eatonton, in the middle of a weekday, jaywalking isn't going to cause much of a stir. Eatonton is the birthplace of Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. It's also home to Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alice Walker and Vincent Hancock, a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. And if I told you Eatonton and the county it's seated in, Putnam, was known as Georgia's dairy capital, the picture you're forming in your mind is probably spot on. A town square, a courthouse in the middle that's straight out of To Kill a Mockingbird, and a barber's shop with a barber's pole, red, white, and blue, on the outside.
Sure does get quiet here. 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Not a soul to be seen on the streets. I guess that's typical. So I'm going to walk down and around the corner. Georgia Writers Museum. Interesting. Next to Sylvia's Coffee, which is closed, oddly enough.
But the story we're going to tell you is not necessarily about Eatonton or all the small southern town tropes you're probably waiting for. Make no mistake, the story will likely end here in the halls of that courthouse that I'm standing in front of. For now, though, we're heading about 12 miles to the east.
In 800 feet, turn right onto West Bypass.
Out past the big swaths of farmland and out into the county. Putnam County, population 22,000, 221 miles of lake shoreline. Because this story begins in a Gulf and lake community that is very, very nice.
It's a very wealthy community. These are retirees who've done well and have got a secure lifestyle. Golf is what really attracts people to the area.
These are going to be your more affluent, your wealthy retirees from major corporations across the country.
There are 4 or 5 major golf courses that are some of the best in the country as far as golf is concerned. Some people are attracted to the lake, to fishing and the amenities of a lake.
They're going to be former district attorneys in major cities across the country, and they're going to be people who have retired from major companies such as UPS, 3M company, and that kind of thing.
So those are the 2 big draws that bring people here, because Lake Oconee is between 4 major metropolitan areas in Georgia: Atlanta, Athens, Augusta, and Macon.
This story is about 2 residents of that community enjoying all the benefits of being retired. Manicured lawns and pristine golf courses.
Shirley played a good bit of card games, bridge, and that kind of stuff. Russ did golf, which most of the folks here do. And they lived a fairly simple life. And then just heavily family duties. The only time they missed church were when they were visiting family.
Shirley is 87-year-old Shirley Dermond, and Russ is her husband, 88-year-old Russell Dermond. On May 1st, 2014, at 2:23 p.m., Russell walks into a Publix grocery store in Greensboro, Georgia. He's wearing cargo shorts, sandals, a t-shirt. He stops and grabs a cart. Inside the store, he buys 2 cucumbers and a loaf of bread. And at 2:38, Russell walks out of that Publix grocery store and into the parking lot. 15 minutes. It seems like one of those just a quick run-in for a couple of things kind of stops. But it's also Russell Dermond's last stop at Publix, because at some point in the next 24 to 36 hours, Russell Dermond dies, and his wife Shirley disappears.
Putnam County 911.
Yes, I have an emergency.
Okay.
I think I have somebody dead.
Okay, what's the address, ma'am?
They were older and they only found him. Remember, Shirley had been taken. She was missing.
It's not a heart attack, and it's not just because they're elderly. Russell Dermond had been murdered in the most violent of ways.
It was an odd crime scene. He had been decapitated in the garage, and Mrs. Dermond was gone. And so we initially approached this thinking that she had been abducted.
We're all wired differently. Some of us are wired for good, some of us are wired for bad. But a select few step outside of all society's boundaries. From Cold Open Media, this is Deviant, the Lake Oconee Murders, Part 1.
Welcome back to Deviant, where we're chasing the truth into the dark corners of what humans are capable of. I'm Andrew Iden.
And I'm Dan Szematowicz.
By now, you're accustomed to hearing us tell you a story about a person who does horrible, horrible things. I mean, it's the name of the show. They're deviants. We tell you who they are, what they do, how they do it. And we try, the keyword here is try, to drill down on why they do it. Motive.
But the deviant in this story has no name, no face. This time, the deviant is the mystery. For more than a decade, the murders of Russell and Shirley Dermond on Lake Oconee, Georgia, have hung in the air. And for the Dermond children, it's been more than 10 years of just waiting.
My name is Brad Dermond, the third son of Russell and Shirley Dermond.
Talk to me about your parents.
Dad was enlisted in World War II. When he came back, he got into the corporate world and was a longtime Tally Industries employee, which gave cause for him to travel quite a bit. And we also got relocated quite a bit too. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, both very involved with church. Dad was really involved with all our kids' sports and scouting and music, and Mom was real involved with bridge, and they had a wide group of friends. Dad was definitely the one you didn't want to disappoint. They had a beautiful marriage, though. I mean, they had no ups and downs with their marriage, and no fight. Never meant, remember like an argument between the two of them, or a period of silence where they're not talking or any of that kind of thing.
After closing the book on a career in business and franchise ownership, Shirley and Russell are looking for a place to live out their years.
It used to be known as Lake Oconee. The entire name was Reynolds Plantation.
That's Billy Hobbs. He's been a reporter for decades in eastern Georgia and works for the Union Recorder newspaper in Milledgeville, just down the road.
Some years later, after the property was all acquired by MetLife out of New York, it changed to Reynolds Lake Oconee. That's where the present name is today, as opposed to Reynolds Plantation. But it's a plush, gated community. You can access it by a number of ways. You can access it through boat landings that are various in number. There's all kinds of fishing activities on the lake and recreational activities on the lake, the whole 9 yards.
In the neighborhood of Great Waters, the Dermonds settle at the end of Carolyn Drive. It's a road that ends at the Dermond's driveway on a loop tucked into a grove of trees. The back of the house has a 2-story screened-in porch that opens up to a dock and an amazing view of Lake Oconee.
They purchased a lakefront lot years and years and years before they ever built a home there.
My name is David Key. I'm the founding pastor of the Lake Oconee Community Church, which was founded in 2000. Just imagine 80-year-old, just sweet couple. They were not the type that drew a lot of attention to themselves. They were really down to earth. They had a fairly simple life, fairly simple time frame, and very giving to the community. They were just very giving people and very down to earth folks.
Church, neighbors, community. The Dermonds are settled in great waters. Before you understand the facts of the murders, though, and we'll get to that, you need to know the man that sits at the head of the table on this case.
Hey there. How are you?
Andrew went there to meet him.
I have an appointment with Sheriff Sills.
Okay, what's your name?
First name is Andrew, last name Iden.
Okay. He's suspecting you.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Yeah. Iden, I-D-E-N.
He should be out in a minute.
Okay, great. Thank you. How you doing?
All right.
To the left, right?
All the way on the left.
Thank you, sir.
All the way to the end.
Hey, how you doing? Sills, how are you?
Really good to meet you.
We've met before.
We have? What was it? I'm sorry.
That's all right. Maybe 2021.
Okay.
Full disclosure here, I was a producer on an hour-long documentary on this story back in 2021 and spent a lot of time with Sheriff Sills talking about this case. A lot of people have spent a lot of time talking with Sheriff Sills about this case, so I kind of get it if he doesn't remember our meeting. On the floor of his office, just as it was when I was here 3 years earlier, is a stack of at least 5 big boxes, all labeled Dermond.
I've been sheriff here for 28 years. I'm a Putnam County native. My family's been here for 8 generations. Now I went away to college and stayed gone for about 15 years. Took 3 colleges before I finally got a degree, but I started my career 50 years ago and was elected sheriff here in 96. The bulk of my career has been as a detective. I spent most of my career, every murder I personally worked or directed those investigations. I'm a mixture of dirt road, country sheriff, and big city. I'm a graduate of the National Sheriff's Institute, the FBI Academy. I'm a educated redneck sheriff that has a pretty good bit of experience.
The point here is that Sheriff Sills is uniquely positioned to be the lead on this case. I mean, if you're going to solve the biggest crime in Putnam County, you're probably better off with a guy from Putnam County.
We deal with the same type of crime that everybody else does. There is no difference in the type of crime. We see everything they see in the big city. The only difference is population, and the more dense the population, the more crime you're going to have. That's just a fact. It is a microcosm of what everything else is, and I think that's true almost all over the country. The days of having a burglary and, one end of the county, and you kind of knew within 4 or 5 people who did it, or, well, sometimes we're still able to do that, but the days when that was a common way to police, those days have changed.
For 10 years, Sheriff Sills has been looking for someone, or maybe multiple someones, who, as he says, aren't sitting at the foot of the cross. The day after Russell Dermond made that quick stop at the Publix in Lake Oconee Village is the Kentucky Derby. And the Kentucky Derby is a big deal in the South. Here's Billy Hobbs again.
They had been invited that weekend. The first Saturday of May is always when the Kentucky Derby is run. And they have been invited by neighbors or whatever to come to their home with other neighbors in that area to watch the Kentucky Derby and have a Kentucky Derby, like what they call party and that kind of thing. And when they didn't come, apparently they had both agreed they were going to come to that Kentucky Derby party. But as it turns out, that didn't happen.
The Dermonds were supposed to be there. They didn't show up. And the Winds, after a day or two, called and nobody answered the phone. So they lived in the Great Waters part of Reynolds, too. And so they came over to see about them.
So, Dan, my wife and I have this routine on Fridays. We talk about what's going to happen during the weekend. We lay out the weekend.
Nothing like some spontaneity to get your weekend going.
Well, I mean, we incorporate that.
You incorporate spontaneity.
9 times out of 10, that weekend requires some sort of chore, some sort of thing we need to get done around the house. And 7 times out of 10, it never gets done.
So how do you do it?
We ignore it for weeks.
Yeah, that's a great method. That is my preferred method as well.
Until at some point, it's like, okay, enough's enough, and we have to get it done. But I'm going to start changing the way we do this.
Are you going to be more spontaneous?
No.
Less spontaneous.
I'm going to call TaskRabbit.
Ah, good move.
You've used TaskRabbit before, have you?
I've used TaskRabbit before. I do love TaskRabbit.
Walk me through how that worked for you.
Okay, super easy. All you have to do is go to their website, taskrabbit.com, or download the app. And then you just search for the tasker that is the person who is right for you. And there's so many ways you could filter. You could filter by your reviews, cost, tasks, subtasks. I've used TaskRabbit a lot for cleaning stuff because I'm lazy. And, sometimes there are taskers who tend to focus more on things like washing baseboards or bathrooms. As soon as you find the tasker that's right for you, then you schedule them and they could be there as soon as that same day. It's all done through the app. So you can just pay and tip and review all right there.
Can they hang TVs?
They can hang TVs.
Can they clean my gutters?
They can clean your gutters.
Can they rake my leaves?
They can rake your leaves.
So tackle your to-do list today and get 15% off your first task at taskrabbit.com or on the TaskRabbit app using promo code DEVIANT.
That's promo code DEVIANT at taskrabbit.com for 15% off your task. TaskRabbit. Book trusted help for home tasks.
Take me to when you got the call or when the day came that you realized, this had happened. Kind of walk me through all of that.
That happened on a Tuesday morning. I think it was May the 6th. 10 o'clock, I was here in the office.
Putnam County 911.
Yes, I have an emergency.
Okay.
I think I have somebody dead.
Okay, what's the address, ma'am?
What's the address here?
I don't know.
We're in Great Water.
Is it 147 Carolyn Drive?
Yes, 147 Carolyn Drive.
Okay, and who is it?
The Dermonds.
Okay, and you're a neighbor or something?
Yes, I just came to check on them. They've been missing for about 4 days.
Are they in the house?
Yes.
What's your name, ma'am?
I'm Peggy Wynn.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay. They're both dead, Miss Wynn?
Did you find both of them? No.
Okay.
No, it's just one.
Okay.
I don't know where the other one is.
I called the radio room, 911 center. Across the lobby here, they got a call, and the dispatcher called and said, called me and said, Sheriff, she gave me the address, and she said, there are dead people all over this house. And the lady that called was very upset. I didn't listen to the recording at that time, but she was very upset. And the dispatchers were a little shocked, too, based on what was said.
All right, I'll get you a deputy in the ambulance over there just in case, okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I jumped up in my chief deputy's office is next to mine, and we ran out the door, and I was actually the second car on the scene. Now it's 12, 13 miles from here out there. And we thought, well, the little we knew at that point in time, that perhaps the perpetrator was still inside. We met the Wynns. They were an elderly couple, just like the Dermonds, their personal friends. They were outside. Ms. Wynn was standing there in the driveway, as I recall. Mr. Wynn, I think, was on the screen porch, obviously quite shaken. Mr. Wynn told me where the body was, and we still swept the house thinking that someone could still be there. Nothing in this house was disturbed, and Mr. Wynn, they couldn't find him. Finally, Mr. Wynn, just as we did, went into the garage, and if you just opened the garage door from the kitchen and looked into the garage, you wouldn't have noticed anything. You had to go down about 2 or 3 steps there down to the level, and then you'd have to walk in between the 2 cars before you would see Mr. Dermond's body at the back.
Russell Dermond's body is on the floor. He's lying on his back near the garage door. He's behind their Lincoln Town Car and Lexus SUV. He's been decapitated.
I would not say there was a lot of blood because it was post-death. He was not alive when his head was severed. Now, if you've ever seen an arterial wound, I mean, it looks like someone had a garden hose blood on it, much less that particular artery. Supine, flat on the back, at the back of one of the cars, decomp fluid and blood dried, dried blood, and they'd taken a few towels. That was one of the few things we know that were disturbed in the house. There was no evidence of any disturbance there, but there was a bathroom adjacent to the kitchen, and the daughter was able to tell us that those towels came from that room because they had a pattern on them, and then we found that pattern in that bathroom. That was fashioned into a dam or a dike, for lack of a better term, and in my opinion, that was to keep the decomp or the blood from flowing out of the garage, because the gasket on both doors, there was no blood. Now, there's little specks of blood everywhere, but there was none outside that closing gasket on that door. And so it was obvious to me that that was put there to keep that from flowing outside, to keep someone from seeing it. Like I said, this is Tuesday. We believe this happened on Saturday. Now, that's an educated guess based on the fact that Ms. Dermond had done a crossword puzzle that was on the kitchen table, and then when the Kentucky Derby. So Saturday is the day we think this occurred. I did not know the Dermonds. I didn't know anything about them. We basically secured a crime scene there. I had to figure out how to contact family.
I was on my way with my wife to our younger son's baseball game.
Here again, Brad Dermond, one of Shirley and Russell's sons.
And that's when we got a call initially from my nephew. He couldn't even hold it together on the phone. So the young man was hysterical. And I really almost didn't even understand what he was saying. We parked in the baseball lot, and almost immediately after I got off the phone with my nephew, one of the deputies for the sheriff called and just told me that my dad was murdered and my mom was missing. Obviously stayed up all night that night, and then first thing the next morning, headed up to Georgia. And then the next morning, we headed to the sheriff's office immediately. I said, we, just me. And by that time, my little sister, Leslie, was already there, and they wanted to question us individually. So it was just Sheriff Sills, and then one member of the FBI was in the room. Pretty much just wanted to know where we were individually during the last few days. And then Sheriff wanted to go over to Mom and Dad's house. So we went to their house, and I'm not sure if he was trying to get a reaction or what. He was just doing his job, obviously, but we went almost immediately into their garage. And so it was pretty obvious from what you could see in the garage. I was the only one that went in there with Sheriff Sills, and the scene hadn't been changed or cleaned up at that time. So just the remains of my dad had been removed, but you could see what took place in the garage itself. Then we spent several days up there, still spending a lot of time with Sheriff Sills. Obviously, he had a lot of questions, and at this time, we're still hoping that my mom's okay.
We're looking for Ms. Dermond's body. We don't know that it's out there, but I mean, it's just. I mean, I had hundreds of deputies from other counties come in, and we did hand-to-hand, arm-to-arm, what I call arm-to-arm searches throughout the grounds all around the house and things like that. But we're still thinking Ms. Dermond was taken. Within less than 24 hours, I had her picture on every electronic billboard in the state of Georgia and some in other states. So we're very concentrated on finding Ms. Dermond.
As it turned out, That was never the case. Shirley Dermond was never abducted in the case.
Putnam County 911.
Yes, ma'am. We just left our house to go fishing from near Long Shoals boat ramp, and we went down towards the dam, Rock Island, and that way. And just before you get to Rock Island, on the left right, that standing timber, it appears to be, we can't get close enough to it, and I don't want to get close enough to it, but it appears like a body floating in the water against a tree over here.
If you zoom out from the pristine golf courses and manicured lawns, you'll hear the motorboats and the jet skis. All of that, a stone's throw from the crime scene tape and Putnam County detectives, walking in and out of the house at the end of Carolyn Drive. The murders of Russell Dermond and his wife Shirley has neighbors calling neighbors, and everyone has ideas.
Folks were thinking, oh goodness, is this some terrorist plot?
Over the time, we've often heard the idea that most people seem to think it was a hit, meaning a professional hit by an organized crime racket or something, There
were all kinds of rumors and conspiracy theories.
Next time on Deviant. In a swirl of rumor, uncertainty, and fear, one man and his team stand in the middle of it all.
I've seen some bizarre stuff. What's crazy here is the absence of evidence, the absence of anything.
What they have on their hands is a stone-cold whodunit, and it's time to get to work.
They begin the hunt for the killer, or maybe it's killers. They enter a kind of maze, with each turn giving them hope. Sometimes it's justified hope, but more often it's false. But they relentlessly move in the only direction they can, forward. Thanks for listening.
Deviant is written, produced, and executive produced by Clark Goldband, Andrew Iden, and me, Dan Szematowicz. Editorial and production consultation comes from Jenny Ament, with original scoring by Shubo Sir. Sales, distribution, and marketing support comes from our partners at Gemini 13. Deviant is a production of Cold Open Media.